Well, hopefully I'm not the only thing coming out of this garage today. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris and this is Restoration Rescue. And like you heard, we hope we're not the only thing leaving this garage today. So what we plan on doing today is getting this thing set up to drive. And the main thing that we need to do is get brakes. So we have our new hydraulic brake line kit, flaring tool kit, which we're going to show you guys how to use. It's actually really cool. I did practice ahead of time and fix one. So now we have to go ahead, make new line, and fix it. So this is the old one, and you can just see how pathetic of a flare that looks. And we're going to make it look like this one, which you could tell looks 100% better, and that's because of this. So let's go ahead, hop towards the bench. I'll show you guys how we're going to use this one to make our flare, and go ahead and flare some new lines. All right, so here we are over at the table, and we have our hydraulic brake flare kit. We have some stuff to go with it that we are going to need so that we can flare this thing. So the first thing we need to do, though, is get rid of that old ugly flare. This new toolkit did come with a new cutter. We're going to use that. We're going to get this set up, and we'll get to showing you how that does it. So here we are at the bench with our new hydraulic brake flare kit. So we have this, which is meant for the 3/16 line. We have two little fittings here. This one's kind of snuck in the back, but that's going to help us make our flare. And we have a new cutter. So we have our line and we need to cut this off. So let's go ahead. We're going to cut that little thing off so that we can make a new flare. So there you have it. We have our old flare off, out the way, and now it's time to get this thing set up. So this is where it gets a little tricky, but make sure before you do anything, you have your fittings on so that you don't have to redo this. So what we need to do first and foremost is get the right stuff. So right here is the correct size for our flare, which is a 3/16. On the side of it, you can kind of see it. I don't know. Yep, there it is, the 45-degree inverted flare. So what we need to do is take our line. So we are going to put it inside our brake line inside. So you want to get it out a little bit, line it up, and just get it set where it is. Now it's okay to be a little bit over. It's not the end of the world. So what we need to do is get our tool out, and we are going to open this up and put this inside. Now you have this right here, and this is what's going to line everything up. So we're going to slide this over, and we're going to push everything together. So that's going to line up about the depth of what we need. Now we just tighten it up. Pretty much as tight as you can. And now we're set. Now what we need to do is take our inverted flare, which is right here, which again, this, if you can see it, let's flip it over so we can read together. 3/16, 45-degree inverted flare. And we are going to pull this thing out so we have more room. Going to put our tool in, and we are going to tighten this up until it gets close, and make sure it lines up with the hole. All right, so now that it's in, we're going to come here, close the hydraulics, and I was going to go one more tighter, it looks like, and start pumping. And then pump until you can't. So now we can't. And now we're going to flip it back over. Open this up. And it's going to release that chalk. and then we can unscrew it. Now what happened in there is we began and made pretty much a bubble flare. I don't know if you guys can see down in there, but once I remove this right here, that's the only problem with this thing. It's a little bit of a pain to get it off. So we'll pull that out. And if you can see down there, there is the beginning of a bubble flare. Now we are going to take this, which, as you can see, just is what's going to make the bubble flare. So it's like the end of the other tool. So we'll put that in there. Tighten this in. Make sure it goes inside. Flip this over real quick. Close this. Tighten this down. Go until we can no longer go forward, which is there. Flip this over. Open the hydraulics. And then unscrew this, and you'll have a perfect flare. Pop out this. And now we can, I'm going to retighten this so this doesn't go all over the place. So you can kind of hold the head. But if you can see in there, we have a flare. So now let's tighten that up. Hold this and loosen this. You can get rid of this thing. Pop this out, and as you can see, you have a perfect flare. So this thing is amazing looking, a 45-degree inverted flare that looks absolutely incredible. We'll get our end up there, and you can see that thing looks amazing. We probably could have went a little bit further on our bubble flare, but that still looks good. We'll get this thing hooked up to the truck, continue on with the other ones, and get this whole thing flared out. So we have now come up here. We've gotten all the lines in, got all the flaring done, and all the lines are set. And now we have no leaks for now. So now what we need to do is we need to go across around each brake and start bleeding, because there's going to be a lot of air that's been left in for the past couple weeks. So let's go ahead and have somebody who doesn't want to be on the channel start bleeding these brakes with me. So let's go ahead and do it. Well, we tried to bleed all day, and of course the rears will not bleed correctly, and we still don't have pedal. Now, we attempted to start to drive it and back it out of the garage. The shifter linkage in the column fell apart again, so I was trying to get that taken care of, and I went down and looked down at the bottom, and I couldn't move any of my gears now. Even after taking apart that shifter, it still won't move inside the transmission. So I believe we have now blew up our transmission. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to jack up the rear end, unlock the drive shaft, and we're going to go see if we blew this thing up really bad. So we're going to open this thing up. We're going to get the drive shaft off, drop the trans, and we're going to take a look at this thing. All right, so we have everything torn down, and I don't know if you can tell, but there's no damage in here. And now the transmission is moving perfectly fine, except when we get into that high gear, which I believe is very reverse. Actually, I don't even know if that's I'm supposed to engage all the way at the top. I'm gonna have to do some reading and investigating on this. But we're gonna try and get you guys in here, so hold on. All right, so you can see we have this one right here, and that is rotating an assembly down here. We also have this in here. If we go too far, then it gets caught. So now, when I opened this up, I also noticed that the shift selectors weren't on the correct pieces. So we need to keep that up. This shift selector was jumped off. This one was over here. So that's part of the issue. However, when I took that off, I still couldn't move it. And now what we found is that the pivot point for the clutch, I can't remember the name of the bearing, it popped off. So the power that we got in here popped off that bearing and made it so I couldn't even move up here because this had gotten all jammed. So what we need to do is we pretty much need to put this thing back together, get that pivot point back in, and get it all back together. So thankfully, we didn't lose a transmission. We just lost a little piece. So this is all normal. This is when you're going to shift into reverse. Then down here is first. So reverse is also here. So I believe this is reverse. And then down here is first. And then if we move this all the way up and back up here, this is either going to be first or second in our high gears. So thankfully, we've avoided some major catastrophe, which is good. We got to clean this material up, get a new gasket, which we're not going to run a gasket like we did last time. I am going to run a new bit of RTV, get this cleaned up, and then get the cap back on, which is currently sitting under the truck. However, that is going to be a next week kind of job, as we have run out of time today. I have been out here for almost 10 hours trying to get these brakes situated and getting this transmission now out of the truck and find out what's wrong. Really, really simple problem for something that should never have happened. Now, what I need to do up front, and we'll switch up to the front real quick. All right, so the shifter linkage is giving us some problems as well, as this isn't tight enough. And this popped off, creating, and I believe that's what caused, when this struck that, it caused our little bearing in the transmission to pop off. So we need to get these tighter so that this doesn't happen again, get that bearing back together, get the transmission back in sealed, and get it back in the truck. Again, that is unfortunately going to be a next week project. I still have issues with my brakes. I'm pretty sure at this point I'm going to bring in an expert to try and help us figure out why my pedal just won't work. Like, I look at the back brakes and we have brakes. However, they don't give the pedal pressure. So like I said, we have dodged a major bullet, and that was losing the transmission. So the transmission is okay. I just need to get it put back together, get that side panel in, make sure I can shift up there, which I had it off and it did. That, I think, when it got hit, when all that got messed up, it jumped and it made my shifting all crazy. So we got that put back together. We will get that put back together, get that back on the transmission, get that back into the truck, fill the transmission up with fluid, and then stab it back in. Get the differential in, and hopefully get this thing to where we can drive again. But then we still have our brake issue, which again, I believe what I'm going to do is I am going to bring in some experts, people who know brakes inside and out, and what I am facing. I may need to re-bench bleed. Maybe that's my issue. I don't know. I just can't understand why I have front pressure, but I don't have rear pressure. Maybe it's a failing master cylinder that I purchased brand new out of the box, but we just don't know. We've adjusted the travel. We've adjusted everything you can think of. I have pretty much gone through almost 8 cans of brake fluid. Maybe that's a little bit of exaggerating, but we're getting close. Might as well order and buy a company that makes brake fluid. Definitely buy some stock in it, but that's for another issue. So that is going to be a wrap for today's video. We have done quite a bit of work here today. Unfortunately, again, we have failed. We have failed quite a bit at this channel, but that's what makes it fun. We failed on the 454. We blew it up. We have failed hundreds of times on this truck. One of the big failures is that it's not done yet. It is coming along. We're going to get to grinding a little bit more, getting that all set up, getting this thing ready for primer, and hopefully getting this thing driving again. But again, we'll see you guys next week when we're back here on Saturday.